So it can be companies from China, from the US, and from Europe to help them better understand how to enter a market, how to prioritize markets, what the local competitive landscape looks like. And we do this for companies of all sizes. And this is just kind of a landscape of some of the companies that we work with. But I want to take a step back before we get into why China is going global and give you some perspective into where we came from. When I used to do business in China about 10 years ago, I'd often sit across the table from heads of Asia Pacific for large multinational companies. And I'd ask them a very simple question. I'd say, beyond China, which markets in Asia are a priority for you? And oftentimes they'd tell me, they'd say, Joel, for my business, China is Asia. They really didn't care about other markets. It was around that time where you saw that it was really North America, Europe, and companies also kind of classified other markets just in this big group of rest of the world. And then the markets like BRICS, they were kind of opportunistic growth plays, but they weren't really where their focus was. If you fast forward to today, it's just not the case anymore. And in China, it's no longer about being in tier 1 cities like Beijing or Shanghai or Guangzhou. It's about looking deeper and going inland and finding opportunities away from the coast. It also means diversifying and taking more of a portfolio approach to the Asia Pacific market. We see my company sees a tremendous amount of interest now in the ASEAN markets, especially in markets like Indonesia, Vietnam, Thailand. One market that I think used to get a lot of kind of mixed messages was India, and I think now this year more than ever there's a lot more focus and optimism about the business opportunities that are there. But as we've seen China's role evolve, we've also seen it evolve on the international stage. We're all used to kind of seeing China as the world's factory and producing all sorts of products to help fuel the development of the Chinese economy. We've also witnessed the transition of China from being what was always seen as a nation of savers to true spenders. You've seen a lot of interesting consumer activity that we talked about earlier, especially in the e-commerce space. But where I think we're moving to more and more now is looking at China actually more as an innovator and also as a global competitor. Many of the companies that you see up there right now have operations all around the world and are, in many cases in their specific industries, on equal footing to their American or European counterparts. So when I think about China going global, I'm looking at 3 distinct levels. I think first it's the geopolitical level, and that's answering the question of what happens when China as a nation starts taking a broader role on the international stage. Tomorrow we have Xi Jinping coming to the US, and he might not be talking about this now, but the Yidailu, or the One Belt, One Road policy, is going to have a dramatic impact on how China's economic and political influence spreads across the region. At a corporate level, when we think about Chinese companies going global, a lot of people used to think this meant take a bunch of Chinese laborers from China and send them to Africa or Latin America, and they'll build some roads, or they'll get natural resources and bring that to China. But today, that's not the case. We have companies from across industries, from as diverse as technology, consumer goods, Hollywood, happening all around the world in markets like the US and Europe and all other markets. So the globalization of Chinese firms has been growing with a tremendous amount of momentum, and I think that's going to continue to advance. And as you think about opportunities yourselves and how you can work with China, Chinese companies could be a potential path. Last, I think the individual level is where things can get really interesting, because you have more Chinese people studying overseas than ever before, traveling overseas than ever before, immigrating, so you have diaspora populations in pockets like Los Angeles, Vancouver, and all around the world with business ties back to China. I think there's a lot of interesting cross-border trends that are going to start to emerge, and we'll talk about some of that in just a moment. So we made it to the global trends. I was looking at these, I was thinking about what global trends make sense to look at as you look at being somebody that's interested in China, doing business in China, and what would it be for you to do something with your career that's not just becoming a China consultant. So I think these are 5 distinct areas where there are true business opportunities, either for you to join a company already operating in this space, or to maybe even build your own company. The first is
kind of this transition of China from being an imitator to an innovator. And while I think there's a long way, especially what we talked about around the education, it's going to take a while for China to become this truly innovative nation. But as we look around some of the high technology investments in that industry, I think we're going to see, and we're already seeing cases where China truly is an innovator. Next, there's a lot more close ties between China and Hollywood. There's a demand for Chinese companies to get content and develop a native theatrical and movie market. And there's also a huge appetite in the US for Hollywood and all the directors and producers to want to open up the next big market back in China. Cross-border e-commerce, I think, touches upon what Phil and Maggie had talked about around trust. It helps fill a big need and a big, let's say, perception of Chinese consumers is they don't trust a lot of the products that are there in very key categories. I think cross-border e-commerce helps fill that gap. Next, this idea of Wanghong, or just these Chinese online influencers, not just becoming the next big sensation on WeChat or Weibo, but actually helping companies to take their products to market or actually sell products in China. And then last, there's just a lot of activity that we'll talk about just briefly in Chinese overseas tourism. I think right now China is the #1 source of tourists from going overseas, and there's a lot of businesses to be made there. So before we, I guess, get into the first trend, I guess for anybody who's from China, can you just raise your hand if you have WeChat on your phone? So I think it's just about everybody. I have WeChat too. I know we've already talked a little bit about this earlier, but WeChat used to be called the WhatsApp of China. It was kind of positioned as like this next clone that was copied in China from the US, and it was kind of made Chinese and localized a little bit. But from the examples that were shared earlier, it's clear that WeChat is actually much, much different. It's really become almost like the operating system of everyday life for Chinese citizens. But what I think is really interesting is I think this is a great example of how something from China is actually being brought to the US. And you can see this with Facebook Messenger. Facebook is taking a lot of this key activity and these functionalities to try to weave them into its own Facebook messaging platform, because they've seen what WeChat's been able to do by taking all of these services and making life so much easier and essentially keeping people in their ecosystem. So Facebook's looking to do something similar, and I think things like autonomous driving, optimization, robotics, there's just so much investment right now that's going to these high-tech industries, and as a result, I think we're going to start seeing more examples like this of things that are starting in China that are coming to the US and other markets. Next is these ties between China and Hollywood. On the left, I don't know if anybody saw this movie, it's called The Great Wall. It is a multi-million-dollar co-production between China and the US. It stars Matt Damon, produced by director Zhang Yimou, combining some of the top talent on both sides. Surprisingly, the movie actually hasn't done that great. But what it does show is the reason why co-productions are attractive to Hollywood is it allows them to get around a quota, because right now there's only a certain number of foreign films that can hit market in China. And because Hollywood really wants to get more movies there, they're working very collaboratively with their Chinese counterparts. China likes it because they're getting talent, know-how, and knowledge is helping them to develop their own industry. And actually, the gentleman here, his name is Wang Jianmin, he's the head of a company called Dalian Wanda. They're trying to build the China's Hollywood in Qingdao in northeast China. He's unique because his firm has kind of gone out and they've developed, they haven't just acquired movie theaters, they purchased AMC theaters here in the US, they also purchased Legendary Pictures in Burbank, California. So they're very acquisitive. You also have other companies that previously did nothing in Hollywood. Alibaba opened Alibaba Pictures, Tencent opened Tencent Pictures. There's a lot of interest here because content is king, and whether we're talking about the theatrical in the movies or online, these organizations want to be at the forefront in getting that top content from the US, which has been proven to be a market leader, seems to be the path. So if you want to go to LA, I'm there, come visit me, and we can do business there. Cross-border e-commerce. I guess I'll share a quick story from my personal life. I think this actually helps illustrate the trend of why this fills such a big need. My wife is from China, and over the years living in the US, her friends will ping her on WeChat and say, hey, can you buy me this and send it to me in China? And so it's kind of become part of her everyday routine. And then last year, one of her really close friends sent her a message, and she said, "I'm about to have my first baby. Would you mind sending me infant formula to help, just because I trust it coming from the US better?" And I thought about it, and we talked about it, and I thought, all right, we'll do it. But then we didn't realize that for the next several months, we'd be making daily, or not daily, but like weekly trips to Target to purchase bulk loads of infant formula and sending them back to China. But I think what this illustrates is this lack of trust. There have been several scandals, whether it's the melamine crisis of 2008, to even just last year, where there was a big factory in Guangdong that was discovered that they were making fake Abbott nutrition infant formula. So there's a big need for high quality, authentic goods in areas like nutritional supplements, infant formulas, home cooking, pretty much any of the categories that you see here. And so what I was just describing is a traditional form of cross-border e-commerce called Daigou, where you have an individual agent purchasing things on somebody's behalf. But what you see here is actually what happens on a much bigger scale with Alibaba's Tmall Global. JD has a platform called JD Worldwide. And even Amazon's in this business with Amazon.cn. And they're bringing a lot of different companies and products to China through the cross-border channel. Next is looking at this idea that Maggie had introduced of Guanghong. This person is probably one of the most famous online influencers in China. She goes by the name of Poppy Jiang. So Poppy is famous because she makes these creative, outrageous videos where she speaks extremely quickly, and she talks about social subjects that oftentimes people don't really feel comfortable speaking about, but are very interested in. So they're a little controversial. So as a result, she's built up an incredible following online, and so much so that she's gotten venture capitalists to invest almost $2 million into her brand. So she has since collaborated with a number of companies to help them go global, or help them enter China, and she's become truly almost a celebrity in many sorts. What I think is more interesting aren't these kind of superstar influencers, but what people that might have maybe 10,000 followers, or these more niche influencers, because they actually control more of an audience and they're more authentic. And I consider these to be category influencers. And so the example below is of a company called Givenchy. They're a French luxury brand. They collaborated with a category influencer that goes by the name of Mr. Bags. And Mr. Bags, he's known for following luxury handbags. And so he has a loyal following that within, I think, less than 12 minutes, they purchased 1.2 million renminbi worth of this limited edition luxury handbag. By seeing this example, I think you can see how influencers, right now the landscape is not very developed, and it's an area that I'm watching very quickly. I know Maggie said she's watching it as well. I think this is something that has a lot of potential in China, where people put a lot of trust into their, kind of the people sharing knowledge on WeChat and Weibo and other platforms, and brands are starting to take advantage of it. Last, just quickly, because I know we're running out of time, just Chinese overseas tourism is booming. It doesn't matter what market you're in, what country, what state, what remote province you travel to, you will find Chinese tourists there. And what's interesting too is that it's no longer just these big kind of tourist groups that you might have seen in the past, where somebody holds a flag and takes people around, like you see over here on the left. But more people are traveling just independently, and they're traveling to destinations that aren't your typical tourist destinations that you might have heard of in the past from the Chinese. So there you have it. Those are my 5 global trends. Like I said, I am on WeChat, so feel free to connect with me. What I think is important, though, just thinking back to when I was starting off, is just, it's when you are interested in China and you want to do kind of China business, it's very hard to understand what are your different opportunities. And I think if you look at these different trends that I talked about, and you look at the entire ecosystem, whether that be the China Hollywood side, whether it's finding ways to leverage influencers in terms of different marketing programs, I think there are some interesting companies that are out there, as well as companies that you can make to have a career in China that you actually don't even need to be in China to do, because of the global reach of China. So that's what I have. Like I said, feel free to reach out to me, and if you'd like to read my book, China Goes West. Thank you.